Welcome to FacingMelsmusic.com podcast, featuring some of the most heartwarming stories from musicians all around the world on FacingMelsmusic.com.
So a very warm welcome to Facing Mel's Music. I am Mel Golding and I have Aishvan from Toronto.
Yes.
How do you say your surname?
My surname, Jeyapalan.
Jeyapalan. Aishvan Jeyapalan.
Yeah,
It's really lovely to
yeah.
meet you. Really lovely to meet
Thank
you.
you.
And you're
Thank
an
you. Lovely to
art.
meet you too.
Thank you. And you're an artist. You're
hmm
creating music. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm an artist, 21-year-old artist from Toronto. I make R&B and pop music, hopefully venturing out to more.
Mm.
And I make music about my life, about people's lives around me, things I see in the news, anything. When inspiration strikes, I just make music about it, and then I impulsively make decisions to put it on albums and EPs.
Oh, I like the word impulsive.
Yeah.
That's good. That sounds like you're just
Yeah.
going on your feeling there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So R&B and pop music, and I heard it. It's got lovely. There's some. There was a song I was listening to, "Start Over." That's really lovely.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Really lovely. So, did you write that one too?
Yeah, I write all of
Oh,
my music.
yeah,
Except for one song on my first album,
yeah,
called Dark Euphoria. It's called a song called In the Evening that I didn't write. It was the producer that wrote it and I recorded it for him. But
yeah.
otherwise any lyric that I've sang, I've written.
Right. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you're only young, aren't you? You said you're in your
Yeah.
early 20s. It makes me feel so old.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this then? When did you get into it? How did you get into music?
Yeah, so like the singing stuff, I got into it when I was like 3. I
Okay.
yeah, my mom enrolled me into some classical Indian music classes called
Lovely.
Carnatic music. Yeah,
Mm.
and I did like annual programs. There was like a competition show that I went on with that. And then when I got into the like music that I do now, I'd always done covers on YouTube since like 2014.
Yeah.
But in 20, I think it was 2017, I write poems a lot when I'm like feeling down.
Okay.
So I just took one of those poems and I went onto like the loop machine online and
Mm.
created a little like piano beat and recorded over it using that poem, and that became my first song that I ever released. And
That's
it's
exactly a
been
song.
like that
Yeah.
since. Yeah,
And that is what a song is, isn't it? It's a poem to a
yeah,
beat. Yeah, exactly.
exactly,
Lovely.
exactly.
Amazing. Ashvan, I'm really curious about you said your mum enrolled you in classical Indian music. Is that right?
hmm Yeah.
Now, has some of that come into your writing now?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, okay. I thought
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because not like because classical Indian music obviously isn't in English, right?
Hmm.
So the English part I is not necessarily what's affected by it. It's more the like melodics to my music, like the riffs that I do or the way that I kind of arrange a harmony sometimes. Like I
Mm.
learned the ins and outs of what I could do with my voice vocally through these classes. And I
Yeah.
spent 15 years in it. So like I really allowed myself to like fully embrace what I could and couldn't do. And what I couldn't do, I like pushed myself to do.
Mm.
And that's how I started to create a little bit more of my music and how I sang the music. So yeah,
Mm.
Carnatic music really helped with that type of stuff.
I could hear on a couple of them, I can't remember which one it was now, but I thought, oh, there's a little slight influence, even in the instrumental parts. Some
Mm,
of the sounds that they were filtering through, and it was very subtle, but it was beautifully woven
yeah.
into your R&B stuff here.
Oh,
R&B is quite
thank
R&B
you.
heavy. It was absolutely stunning, really beautiful,
Thank
and
you
that
so much.
and that's to be celebrated. That
Mm,
culture is absolutely wonderful. You've got to bring that
yeah.
out into your music. It's really to be celebrated. How's it
Yeah, and
received? People,
yeah,
are they?
it's at first I was a little afraid, I'm not gonna lie to you,
Mm,
because like obviously my audience at first was not like huge or anything like that. Not that it is now, but like
yeah.
it definitely was just like my mom streaming my song on YouTube.
Right.
24/7.
Oh, bless her.
But yeah, and like I was nervous to have my like grandma hear it and my aunts hear it and my cousins and stuff hear it, because again they only knew me with like the Tamil music, the Indian classical music. They didn't really like see me, or I don't know if they supported me, but they didn't like necessarily like they didn't really pay attention to the English music with
Right.
me. So when I started to heavily do that, I was a little afraid, and I honestly felt like at first I was whitewashing it. I
Okay.
don't know if that's a term I should use, but
Oh,
I was sort of like
yeah.
watering it down, like watering the culture
Yeah.
down,
Yes.
and making it more generic, making it more, I was like a naive 16-year-old. So I was like, this is gonna get on the radio, and I'm like, didn't
Yeah.
know anything.
Right.
But I'm in a place where I really, especially now in this present moment, I want to embrace the culture more than ever. I have a
Lovely.
few covers that I did of Tamil songs that I'm really excited to release.
Wonderful.
And I have a few collaborations coming out that are in English, but they're with like the South Asian community is entirely involved, and
Beautiful.
it's so exciting. Yeah.
That is really exciting. So goodness. So you're really, really busy. What was your most recent release? What was the last thing you released?
I feel like I should know this.
It's not a test.
Ruin a Good Thing. There we go.
What's it called?
It's called Ruin a Good Thing. The song.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I dropped like expanded edition of my album that came out last year called None of This Was Easy. I dropped like an expanded edition where I had like 2 extra songs on it and some songs that came out over the course of the past 3 years. But my official release, I guess, is Ruin a Good Thing for sure.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you, is it okay if I play that to?
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay.
Got him such a devil the way I'm manipulated. I can't take
That's great. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It feels like you're very proud of that. And I know you're doing other things as well. Let's talk about life running concurrently alongside being an artist, right? Because
Yeah.
it's really important to, well, it isn't to me, that it's not just the only thing that we're doing, and we're
Mhm.
trying to do other things too. You're a
Mhm.
student, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm a
What
student.
You're a student. Tell me about, where are you at with your studies? How far into it and what you're doing?
I'm in my hopefully second last year of university. And I do biology, that's my major,
Good.
and I'm at the University of Toronto.
Mm,
And so like I have a little bit of a grip on life, but like as a student, but it's also a
mm,
little difficult coming out of the pandemic and all. None of us have ever experienced anything like that. So
yeah.
um especially
Yeah.
as a student, we had to go in person, then online, then in person again, and then back online. And now we're back in person.
Okay.
And I kind of always put being a student first, even though I am an artist and I do take that very seriously.
Mm,
Being a student for me has always been something that I've always kind of prioritized because
mm,
I've spent so much time on it and I
yeah.
believe in the stuff that I study.
Mm,
And it's so intriguing to me, but also
mm,
super important to just have the knowledge, even if it's like
mm.
biology can be, boring sometimes. And I feel like any biologist could say that. Um,
Okay.
but I, at the same time, like it's not necessarily what the content is. It's what the skills you can take out of how you retain that content. And I
Mm,
actually do, I'm able to put that into my music and put that into
mm.
researching different topics for specific, songs that I do.
See, now I love that you said that you can put it into music, because I believe that that is really, really important. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how do you put it in what context do you put it into your music? Would it be sort of lyrically in terms of content, or is it what? How do you do it?
Yeah, so lyrically and it's both in lyrics and content.
Okay.
Lyrically, I feel like one of the biggest things I'm proud of myself for are my lyrics, because I grew up. I'm not the best English speaker. I was born in Canada, but like I'm not the best English speaker. It's hard, but
You sound
with
amazing to me.
thank you. But like with the like lyrics that I do and stuff, I feel like I have a very descriptive touch to it a lot of the time, and I'm
Okay.
able to really just kind of put myself into the um, writing process, because I am able to write essays, and I've been able to write lab reports and stuff like that, where you have to use and read extensive
Mm,
English and just like
mm,
really
mm,
intense stuff. So that was definitely influenced by school, but also the content stuff. I try to, and I think we're gonna get into this later, but I try to like dive into mental health a lot of the time,
yes. Hmm.
and especially with the like past few years, I really tried to like dive into that. And
Yeah.
with mental health, I feel like it's something that you can't just you can obviously speak about it without really knowing much about the other people that deal with stuff like this. But at the same time, I feel like it's an important step to like look around at different articles and people, other podcasts, other
Mm,
music, and just
mm,
really understand how other people are feeling, or if they're
mm,
feeling the same way as you are.
yeah.
And that
Mm,
sort of, with school and stuff like that, I was able to like kind of find the tools like databases, research databases and stuff like that, to read up on articles about mental health and really do that research, maybe for a project but also for my music.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's self-development, isn't it, as well? It's about how,
Definitely.
acquiring information,
Mhm.
researching, broadening the mind, stretching the mind,
Yeah.
awareness, all of this, because the more aware you are, of course, the more you can
Yeah.
incorporate that into songs, into music, and the more you can spread the message, spread the research in that field, within
100%.
that, and that sounds like that's what you're doing. So
100%. Yeah.
mental health is important. Yeah. Have
Mhm.
you yourself experienced difficulties in these areas, or had to overcome some kind of obstacle with where mental health is concerned, any point in your life? I mean, I know you mentioned COVID, that could have been one,
Hmm.
being in and out
Mm,
of uni, and that's been a lot, for many people. What
yeah.
about yourself? I mean, what do you think about that? Where are you at with that, with mental health?
Um, I feel like with COVID, like I said, like you said, it was very much, it was very like unstable, right? So a lot
Mm,
of people's lives were impacted when some people didn't have a job, some people didn't. Obviously, that like social aspect was not there. Like the only thing you
mm,
had was Zoom, and
yeah.
it was really difficult for me, especially too, because I'm somebody who I'm not I'm not an extrovert by any means, but with the people that I'm comfortable with, I am. And I couldn't see the people I was comfortable with for, I think the longest one was like 11 months or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was really difficult. I couldn't see, like, I have an aunt who gave birth in 2021, and I couldn't see,
Oh,
my little cousin sister for like,
yeah.
3, 4 months. And that really, like, stuff like that is what really, like, gets to you, right?
Of
But
course.
beyond that stuff, it's also like
Mm.
for me, especially like with people my age, sorry,
It's all right.
um, at at my age, I was what was I? I was like 18,
Yeah.
18 when I started in the the pandemic started, and
Mm.
or was I 19? It's probably 19.
Mm.
Um, but I don't know, something like that. But
I
I
struggle, don't worry. I struggle to remember how old I am. I've lost count.
honestly, I feel like I make it through it all time, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's just a number.
Yeah, exactly. But
Mm,
I started the pandemic at like a pretty young age, and I feel like
mm,
a lot of people in my age group as well. I like to say this a lot, where I kind of all of us kind of grew up faster than we
mm,
should have, because all we had were these four walls and like family members or people that
mm,
we were living with, or sometimes we were alone.
mm,
So we were honestly we were realizing so many things at once
mm,
rather
mm,
than spreading that out and learning it with our friends, going out and doing
mm.
having experiences. All we
Yeah,
could do was really sit in those thoughts, and I feel like we grew up a lot faster than maybe we should have. um
interesting. Yeah,
yeah, and that's kind of warranted to a lot of the mental health
right.
aspects that I've had.
It's interesting you say that actually, because that never occurred to me actually. That element of growing up faster. Yeah,
Mhm.
and the impact on development, of course.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
also with like social media, like TikTok became
mm,
huge.
yeah,
And so you went from like people kind of being introduced to different topics at all times. What else were you going to do other than scroll on TikTok, right? So you were scrolling through TikTok, you see all these people making videos about stuff, or
yeah.
people kind of playing on their insecurities. And
Mm,
that kind of causes you to realize a little bit of your insecurity, for instance.
mm.
And that really, like, that just adds fuel to that fire. At least that's the case for me. It's not the case for everyone,
Yeah. No,
but
I think
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just, yeah, and it's yeah, interesting. And of course, we were all aware of that, aren't we? How social media, I mean, it was there, it's always there, it's been growing, but it was sort of really, it felt like it was catapulted forward leaps when we got into the COVID. We were
Yeah.
using it much, much more. Of course, we were. And TikTok was something that really took off. Are you on TikTok? Do you use TikTok now for your music and stuff? Do you?
Yeah, I do. I do. I
Good.
try
Yeah.
to like I don't try to make it super centric to music, because I know
Yeah.
like I I'm not like I obviously do love all the accounts that I follow, but some accounts are very much centered to their music. And a lot of the
Yeah.
time I want to have my personality shine through a little bit too, because my music is
Yes.
very like serious a lot of the time. So I
Mm.
make like funny videos here and there, but I do promote my music on there as well.
Yeah, good. That's what you're
Yeah,
supposed to do. Excellent. And you
exactly.
and you are on YouTube as well. You have
Hmm.
you got your YouTube channel, don't you? I'm just
Hmm.
having a look here, and Ashvan as well. And I've got this lovely song "Start Over," which I will play. Just trying to think of the "None of This Was Easy." What's that one
Yes.
about? None of this was easy.
So that is my album from last year,
Uh huh.
2022. And I that was like a 2-year process I made that album. Well, I wrote that album first, and then I recorded it the year after. And that was pretty much centered around my journey from 2019, 2020 to 2022, and
Goodness.
all the struggles, all the, good times and the bad times as well. Yeah.
Is it centered, because that's obviously the COVID era, obviously. Is it centered kind of around that, or was it anything else going on other than the reactions to the COVID? Were
Yeah.
there other things going on for you during that period?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I was, like even with COVID, life kind of still moves on, and beyond, um, the COVID pandemic and the reaction to it. There was also like life stuff that happened with heartbreak and new love, and if any family members are watching this, I'm totally lying right now.
Ah,
Um,
dear.
no,
We
but
can
I'm
always
not.
cut this out. It's fine. I'm
No,
kidding.
that would be inauthentic. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's true though. Like I felt a lot of
Mm.
things emotionally
Yeah.
that involved love and heartbreak. I also went through a lot of like stuff that wasn't COVID related, but still impacted my mental health.
Mm.
Um, and like I wrote so many songs that like it almost like none of this was easy. Kind of feels like an album taste rather than
Okay.
like a full synopsis of what those 2 years were, because I couldn't physically fit like
Yeah.
I've recorded around like, or maybe I wrote about like 100 and something songs
Mm.
for the album and
Wow.
recorded about like 30 or 40. So
Right.
couldn't really
Yeah.
put all that on one.
Goodness. Yeah. You don't mess around, do you? You're a
Mm-mm.
fast worker. You're there. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I want to know your secret. It took me like years to do one album. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's crazy. Tell me about, because you're in Toronto. I feel Toronto has been quite an important part of your life. I feel that place, Toronto. You've got a
Mhm.
song. Is it a song called Toronto Nights? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about
Toronto
what
Nights.
what's that about? That song, Toronto Nights.
Yeah. So it's actually it started it has a funny story behind it.
Okay.
I have a song that comes right before it on the album called I Gotta Go. And
Yes.
I released that song as the lead single for the album. And I I oh, people loved the song obviously, but people were like, "Where are you going? Like, where are you going? Come on!" And like they
Right.
would make a joke out of it, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, I was like, it's actually kind of a cool concept to actually explain where I go mentally. And
Mm.
Toronto, especially at nighttime for me, especially at least in my head, it feels like a little bit of an escape because I love the city and I love being in the lights. I love, being around different cultures, different people, and you're just
Mm.
one of the people there. You're not like,
Mm.
there's like a billion people, not a billion, but like there's like
Mm.
thousands of people
Yeah.
walking beside you at all times, and they have their own lives, their own issues, their own struggles, and their own triumphs, right?
Mm.
And that sort of comforts me a lot of the time, where you're walking
Mm.
alongside so many people with so many different stories, and
Mm.
that sort of like I wanted to
Mm.
encapsulate that into a song and make that something really special for me, and I want to perform that song very
Mm.
bad in Toronto.
Cruise down the O3 just to get away from this.
yeah, it's a lovely title and a lovely sentiment and concept that you have for the meaning, because it feels like what you're talking about is the parallel lives, all these parallel lives
Mhm.
going on. Everyone's got their
Yeah.
own life and going through their own different things, and you're aware of that, which
Yeah.
seems important. And there's a lot of awareness that you're bringing into this conversation here, and
Yeah.
I feel that that's
Thank
really
you.
important, to be aware. Mm,
Exactly. Yeah, and it's
mm,
so important. So,
mm. Absolutely, yeah. Gravity. What's that
mhm.
about? Gravity.
Gravity is it's actually a song. Person that the person on the song, his name is Shay, and
Okay.
he's a good friend of mine. We met like in 2019, and we've worked on one song before.
Mm.
But this song is actually his song, and
Ah,
he
okay.
presented the song to me, and he was like, "This is really like, I feel like you do really good on it." And
Mm.
the song essentially is about like almost like living in toxicity and
Mm.
like being stuck in someone's toxic orbit, but
Mm.
loving it. And like, I feel like
Interesting.
I think my opening line is like 6 feet down on the ground, but you're pulling me up just to break me down.
Mm.
So like I'm already in the ground, I'm already buried down, but like
Mm.
this person's like getting inside of my grave just to like break my bones a little bit more.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
like I feel like that's a common thing that happens a lot of the time. And that's exactly where I was at that point when I was writing that song. So
Yeah.
I definitely that's what that song's about, and I love
Mm.
that song so much.
I just love
Yeah.
all the titles and the melodies, obviously, and then the way that the music feels as well. But it
Thank
definitely, I love the fact that you bring in all this meaning into it, and you're
you.
bringing relationships into it, aren't you? You're bringing the
Yeah.
meaning of people, humanity, and what that means to you.
Mhm.
How do you feel? I mean, do you have a good um, what's the word I'm looking for? Social? Do you have a good social circle? A good friendship? Do you have close friendships, or are there lots of acquaintances? How does that work for you?
I have both.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of people that I do obviously like when I see them, I'm gonna hang out with them, I'm gonna talk to them, say hi.
Mm,
But there are also people that like they've been so crucial to my growing and crucial to
right.
the journey that I've been on.
Yes.
And like those are the people that I consider lifelong friends. Like I have like at least 4 pictures right here that are right next to me that like
Mm,
have their faces on it because they're so important to me and I
mm,
know that I'm important to them as well in their
mm.
journey. So those
Yeah.
are the close friendships that I have where
Yeah.
there's substance behind it.
Right. Yes.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it is important, isn't it, to have those? And you don't really need. Say, don't really need that many. In fact, they do say you just count them all on one hand. Actually, maybe even one finger, even. You
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
exactly. I have right now, I have like oh no, I'm not going to say that because that'll cause a lot. But
Yeah. Be careful.
I have a good support system.
Good. That's wonderful. And you have family too. You mentioned your mum.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
you're close with your mum. You
yes,
have
yeah.
a good family network. And does that play? And what do they feel about? How do they feel about your music? How do they feel now about your music?
Um, well, I don't know if my dad actually knows that I do music. I mean, I
Oh,
think he does, but
okay.
like, it's not like I'm hiding it or anything. I think he just like kind of is like, oh, you're doing that little thing, but he doesn't understand what it is. But I
Yeah.
don't like. I know, obviously, like he may very much understand.
Yeah.
But my mom is somebody who at first she didn't understand what I was doing, and she was a
Mm,
little afraid for me because I'd always had the dream to like be on a big stage. One of my biggest dreams
mm.
is to be on in like the arena in Toronto and
Oh, lovely.
perform. So like that's always been a dream of mine. And she was a little scared of that because she knew the
Mm,
like real aspects behind stuff like
yeah.
that, right?
Mm,
So
mm.
but like she's definitely warmed up to it when she saw how much music heals me
Yes.
and how much music has impacted my life.
Mm.
And now she's in a place where she's definitely like she's so supportive. She's, eager to like she's like, I want to be your manager. And I'm like, why? And she's like, because I know you better than you know yourself sometimes. And I'm like, okay. Well, but like she's super supportive like that. And she's
Mm,
like she's somebody who does help me a lot of the time with, you know, ideas for songs and stuff. For
Oh,
sure.
that's nice. So she's
Yeah.
getting quite involved there, actually.
Yeah.
Uh,
She wants
yeah,
to.
that's good. Okay, right. Okay, then. Okay, but it's always lovely, isn't it? It's good to have that kind of support and that validation, you know,
Yeah.
from at least, you know, a parent. Um, absolutely. You talk about performance.
Mhm.
Have you performed live with your stuff? Are you doing any performances? You have?
Yeah, it's actually funny you say that because it was not even like a month ago when I did my first ever set of my own songs.
Ah,
Um, yeah, so I
congratulations then.
thank you. I opened for an incredible artist named David July on his Kaleidoscope tour at his
Mhm.
Toronto stop, and I performed. I think it was like four of my songs and a cover, and it was magical. It was so, and I wasn't
Oh,
even nervous. I was expecting to be the most nervous I've ever been, but I was so far beyond nervous that I was like, you know what? This is my music. I believe in every word I sing. It's just going to be
good.
such a great time.
Mm. That's the beauty, isn't it? When you're doing your own
Mm,
music, you're doing that live, you know. Yeah, this is my message, and no one else can say it in any other way. And I
yeah,
own it, sort of
exactly.
feeling, you know, and you can't go wrong with that,
Yeah,
you know. You can't be
yeah,
criticized
yeah.
or, you know, that is yours, and that's your right to own that.
Exactly.
And it feels like that, quite rightfully so, kicked in and took away any
Oh,
possibility for
100%.
nerves. So
Oh,
it,
100%. And I'm somebody who
yeah,
gets very anxious. Like,
yeah,
well,
right.
I can't remember when, but like it was like a few weeks ago when I was sort of put on the spot and asked to sing. And I got
Mm,
super nervous and I said no. And then I went to the bathroom and I had to like just clear my mind for a second because
yeah.
I get stage fright when I'm performing covers and like
Mm,
stuff like that aren't necessarily mine because
right.
it is someone else's message, someone else's, you know,
Mm,
even if it's like like in Tamil movies, we have songs that like it's like every Tamil movie is a musical. So like there are songs that pertain to the specific story of that
mm,
movie, which are the songs that I would perform at like a
yeah,
wedding or something. But
yeah.
even those, like those aren't, hey, those aren't mine, but those are also crucial to another story. And
Mm,
I want to convey that message the way the person that intended that
yes.
song to be intended for. I want
Mm.
to perform that the way they wanted to.
Well, that's very respectful. Very
Yeah, you have to have
respectful.
respect. Yeah,
You do have to have respect. That's wonderful. That's great.
yeah.
So, just looking, I mean, at the music for a minute. Who are your influences? Who influences you?
Ooh, okay. Well, when I was younger, I had a lot of actually a lot of female vocalists
Okay.
influenced me. So when I was younger, there's an artist named Demi Lovato, which
Okay.
all of my friends hear about constantly. But they've definitely had such a huge impact on my vocal. You know,
Ah,
like not necessarily like my journey or anything. Oh, that too, definitely, but that's more personal. Vocally, though, they've kind of helped me come out of like vocal blocks that I've had where like when I couldn't hit a certain note, I'd be like,
mm,
I'd literally study their performances and I'd see what they would
mm,
do in their vocal performance and I try to
mm,
mimic that.
mm,
And I do that with a healthy placement,
mm,
like in a way where it wouldn't like strain my vocals, but I also
mhm,
knew the way their mouth moved, the way that they would like lift their finger or suck their diaphragm in when they needed to, things like that. So definitely with Demi, that's been something that's like
mm,
they've been one of my biggest inspirations there. I've
mm,
recently, not recently, but like more so towards when I started putting out music. The
mm.
Weeknd is somebody who's been a huge influence of mine. Um, because everyone says like vocally I sound like the Weeknd. Um,
Okay.
and
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
so I've I've I haven't tried to mimic him or imitate him in any way,
Mhm.
but I've definitely his sound, the synth
Right.
pop sound that he's put out
Yeah. Yep.
definitely has spoken to me and I'm like, you know what, I really want to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
There's
wanted to
nothing wrong
I
with
wanted to
that.
try that. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's working, and I think it's normal to gravitate towards one or two artists more than a whole bunch of them. You tend to gravitate towards one or two, and it's interesting that you're looking at your influences as in vocally. So it
Hmm.
feels like it feels like that's been an area that you've worked on that a lot, haven't you?
Oh
A lot,
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah.
I'll constantly,
Mm.
even like this morning, I was in bed and I was like, I found myself watching performances of Broadway shows because I feel
Mm.
like right now I'm in a place where I want to grow my voice.
Mm.
Sorry. Because sometimes I
Mm.
feel like I can sound a little nasally. I'm very aware that like sometimes
Oh,
I don't enunciate my words enough, right?
okay.
So with Broadway performances, not only do they engage their diaphragm and their core, but they
Hmm.
also enunciate while doing that. And I want to
Yes.
study the way that they do stuff like that so that I could put that into my music. And
Okay.
like that's
Hmm.
like for me, that's why I paused for a second when you said influences, because there are so many
Yeah.
that 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 come from there's JoJo,
Yeah.
there's Nick Jonas, there's frig, what's his name? Billy, Billy. He sang "Lovely Day" back in the day. "Lovely Day."
Oh, lovely.
Billy Weathers.
Oh,
Billy
goodness.
Weathers.
You've got me now on the
Yeah.
spot. I don't know. I know who you mean. Yeah, yeah. I know exactly
Yeah,
who you mean. Yeah.
him,
Okay.
and especially that
I think
song.
it is actually. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Let's have
yeah,
a quick look.
and
I'll
like
find it.
just people like from
Hmm.
eras ago that sang.
Yeah, bear with us.
I'd love to like study them and vocally, just and lyrically see what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting that the voice has been, of course, it would be because you're doing everything, aren't you? You're writing
Mm.
the music. Are you producing the stuff as well? Are you actually?
No,
You're not.
I have an
Okay.
incredible producer named OG that helps me with that stuff. And also I have like we have a little like four squad where it's
Okay.
me and my producer OG, another artist named Leor, and
Okay.
Shay, who was on Gravity. And Leor
Right.
was on One Night on my album. And we have a little group where we kind of just like meet up sometimes on Zoom and we just make stuff. And that's how songs are born.
Oh, I love it. How you make it
Yeah.
sound so easy.
Oh, it's definitely not. There's been many nights where we're just like,
Yeah.
what the hell are we doing here?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think most people go through that. It's all right. Good. Now I
Mm,
feel a bit better now. Thank you for that. But it sounds lovely. It sounds like you've got a close knit there, a good team of people that
yeah.
you can rely on. And this is
Yeah.
this is really important, to
Hmm.
build a career with these people, this team, because you're looking
Hmm.
at loyalty as well. You're looking at
Yeah.
it's not just the musical connection, it's the loyalty involved. And it's taking each other seriously. It's validating another person. There's a lot of respect going on in there. And it feels like
Hmm.
you've actually got that nailed. You have that.
Yeah.
And because you have
100%.
that,
Yeah.
you're able to make them and keep them coming. And yeah.
It's a lot. It's definitely harder than
Mm,
like I thought it would be because I actually like have the privilege of meeting artists that I
yeah.
want to like name drop a few because they're so great. Like Marie, for instance, who was on
Mm,
Start Over with me.
mhm.
She's been such a huge help to especially the quality of my music. She's been
Yeah.
such a huge help and like teaching me different things that I should be doing
Yeah.
in my career. Also,
Right.
there's a rapper named Spitty who's
Right.
crazy good at rapping, and also
Amazing.
somebody I look up to in terms of like how to connect with people, how to like
Mm,
really market your music. That's something he does beautifully. And there's a
wow.
bunch of people I've been on TikTok: Jackson Troy, Talitha, Madison Rose. There's so many amazing Melodica. Definitely so many different people that I've seen, and
It's
like I
wonderful.
wanted to name drop them because they're so good.
Please do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny because you mentioned that because I was going to ask you about your collaborations, and it feels like
Yes. Yeah.
you've got this sort of this team of people that are your regular go-to people, but you've also
Mm,
got other artists that are coming into the equation, and that's quite
yeah.
exciting, isn't it? That's
It
quite
is. It
exciting.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Positive.
amazing. It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to uplift each other as
Mm,
artists, especially in such a
mm,
cutthroat Toronto scene or just music scene in general. Like
yeah.
I'm nowhere near touching the surface of being like a known artist, right? And I'm very aware of that, but at the same time, there's so many other people who are in the same boat.
Mm,
So
mm,
why spend time fighting with people, being annoyed
yeah.
with people, and
No,
arguing with people when you can just uplift each other and be the
absolutely.
best you can to each other.
Yes, yes. And yet, I just wanted to put in, you might not be that well known yet, okay, but you're working towards that, and I'm sure there's no
Yeah,
doubt, the quality of music that you are producing, it should be at that level. It's great. It's
yeah.
really great. Really,
Thank
really
you so
brilliant. You should be very proud of yourself for everything you've achieved. Do you feel good
much.
about what you've achieved? I hope you do.
I do. I've struggled a lot with
Yeah.
um I honestly I self-deprecate a lot. Like
Mm,
I'm that type of person. But for
right.
with my music, the one thing that I never self-deprecate myself about, at least in like a very serious way,
Mm,
is my music. And
good.
I'm very aware that all the songs that I write are mine. All the
Yes.
like putting out two projects, one
Yeah.
amidst a whole pandemic,
Yeah.
is crazy. Even if I'm not necessarily happy with the first one, which I'm not,
Yeah.
but like I am still proud of the fact that I put in the time and put in my work to
Yes.
do that and make
Yes.
these connections and
Yes.
craft a sound for myself. So I am
Good.
proud of myself with the music stuff for sure.
Good. I'm glad to hear it because, this imposter syndrome is quite a
Mhm.
popular
Oh
entity,
yeah.
whatever you want to call it, and we're very quick to look at the negative sides of ourselves, to put ourselves down, what we should have done.
Hmm.
And we're all doing it, everyone does it. But I think it's really,
Hmm.
really important to big up the positive stuff, the obstacles that you've overcome, the personal stuff, and how you've
Yeah.
persevered. And you have persevered and gone through these hard times
Yeah.
and produced music, and great. And it's really important to name that.
Yeah. It's actually like funny you say that because the journey of that was kind of insane. In
Right.
2019, I dropped another project, or like my
Right.
first project called Dark Euphoria, and that after that, I did a bunch of singles. I did a bunch of like stuff that I wasn't. I was just kind of putting out because I liked the feeling of putting stuff out, but I wasn't
Mm.
necessarily 100% in those songs.
Yeah.
And then that kind of led up to a point in my life where I was like, music isn't making me happy. Things aren't making
Yeah.
me happy. I
Yeah.
need to take a break.
Yes.
And coincidentally, around the time, that's when we started doing the studio stuff with the four of us, me, Jack, or sorry, me, Leor, OG, and Shay. The four
Mm.
of us, we started doing stuff on Zoom, and I kind of sat back and watched them do amazing stuff with their music. And
Mm.
with stuff like that, their journey and just me watching and being a spectator to that really helped
Mm.
me heal a lot of my musical wounds and personal wounds too. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Have you
Yeah.
ever felt, and I probably shouldn't open this can of worms up, because
Okay.
it's just something you said about taking a break from music, because I think
Mhm.
I'm surprised, actually. I am surprised because I know that feeling. Because I'm an artist as well. I'm a singer
Yeah.
songwriter. So,
Yeah.
I've had a whole relationship with music and the music industry. So I'm fully aware of what people go through. But,
Mhm.
did you ever get angry with the music industry? Or were there any times when you felt not enough was happening, or, and taking a break from music for that reason? Or did that ever enter the equation in terms of the
Not
industry?
at not at that point. At
Not at
that
that
point, it
point.
was very personal. But now, actually, I'm in a place where I never really speak about music, the music space, besides
Mm,
like in the interviews and stuff. But like,
mm,
I've recently in 2023 made like a lot more revelations with how like compliments are perceived within artists. Like
okay.
I'm the type of person, if I like your song and you're a small artist, I know how it feels to get a compliment for a song because
Yes.
it means the world, like even through
Yes.
a DM. Um,
Yeah.
so I I'm somebody who's
Mm,
easily able to go on to Instagram and DM you about it, right? And I
mhm.
do that a lot, and I just want to like reach out and say, "Hey, your song, amazing. It's been on repeat all day."
Okay.
And I like to make people's day, but some artists take that as like oh, this person's just trying to collab with me. Oh, this person's just trying to be,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
So that's one thing
Right.
that I just like it irks me a little bit when people automatically
Yeah.
think that about a compliment, which I'm not saying that
Mm,
you shouldn't be precautious of those things, because
mm,
unfortunately there are people out there like
mm,
that. But you know, it irks me that like there's people who out there who probably think that of me right now, because it's not.
right.
I genuinely just want to, if we're if we're not going to be friends, at least
Mm,
let me be your fan, you know?
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting because you're in a whole other. You're in the new industry. I'm coming from the old one,
Mhm.
basically. So but it's okay. So you're talking about the elements of communication between artists
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that approach, which is very interesting. But your belief is to big each other up and to support. I feel your belief is to support each other
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
all need it. And that's the way everyone should go about it. And that makes you a bigger
Mhm.
person and a bigger artist as well, you know. Because
Thank you.
if you can,
Yeah.
yeah, good for you. You know, if you can big someone else up, that means you have your own self. There's self confidence going on with that alone, even though you might not know it. Okay, and
Mhm.
that is. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah,
Yeah.
good for you. You know, and to not
Thank
walk
you.
away from that. But yeah,
Mm.
wonderful. So what's your just before we round this up? It's been amazing
Yeah.
speaking with you. Absolutely lovely
Yeah.
speaking with you and meeting you.
Thank you. You
What
too. You too.
what are you working on right now? What's your next mission?
Um. Well, I okay. Well, I didn't originally. What I was going to do this year was put out a bunch of songs and kind of take a break from the whole project stuff, right?
Right.
And then that thing happened where I was like impulsively. I had a song that I recently cut. Um, and I was like, you know what? I'm bored. I'm gonna make like a single cover for it, right?
Hmm.
And I made the single cover, and the single cover looked more like an album cover. And I'm like, wait,
Mm.
maybe I should make an EP. So now I'm working on an EP.
Oh,
Um,
good.
yeah, and the first song it's already out, called "Ruin a Good Thing." It's with OG and the amazing Kent Rose. Um,
Fabulous.
and this project, without speaking too much about it, I guess I want
Yes,
to say
it's
that like
fine.
a lot
Mhm.
of a lot of the time with None of This Was Easy, as much as I love the project and I love what it stands for, a lot of
Mm.
the time I feel like it's more of a narrative project rather than a personal, like, journal, I guess. And
Mm.
it is, in some form it is a journal, of course, but
Mm.
it's more of like it's taking you through what my 2 years have been.
All right.
Whereas with this EP, what I didn't touch on in the album is calling myself out for my toxic behavior, because I'm not perfect. I'm
Mm-hmm.
in no way, in a space where I can be like, I've only ever been the victim. I've only ever been somebody
Yeah.
who, has been hurt. I've hurt
Mm-hmm.
people, and I know
Mm-hmm.
that, and I know that
Mm.
there's been situations where we've both mutually hurt each other. There's situations where I've unfortunately been the one to hurt people because of my toxic behavior. And on
Okay.
this EP, I really want to dive into that type of stuff
Mm.
and my reactions to situations that haven't been the best, and
Yeah.
calling myself out, because I feel like there's a lack of that
Mm-hmm.
um, in
Mm.
project form lately too.
Mm. Mm. Well, that's really honest.
Hmm.
Again, it's about being the bigger person, which is
Yeah.
is admitting to all of that, and that's
Hmm.
that's all. You're doing that through self reflections. I take it. So
Exactly.
it's all about
Exactly.
self reflections and being very honest about that, and almost apologetic about that.
Oh,
So
100%.
there's
Yeah.
something very healing about that because it's forgiveness, it's self forgiveness, and there's an element
Mhm.
of forgiveness in that. So yeah,
There's
sounds.
also It's funny
Mm.
because there's also an element of not forgiving, because I forgive
Hmm.
too much a lot of the time,
Okay. Hmm.
which is also toxic. Forgiving people that don't deserve the forgiveness right away. I think it's important
Okay.
to forgive eventually, but I'm somebody
Mm.
who likes to I've forgiven people where they've continuously hurt me, like it's a cycle,
Okay.
and that's a toxic behavior on my part because I let them back into my life. And there's a
Right.
song that's coming out next month that's kind of calling that out a little bit, where it's like
Right.
you have a right to be angry, and you need to
Yeah.
feel the anger in order for you not to make
Mm.
that same mistake again.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's all of that
Mm.
forgiveness, not forgiving too
Mm.
quickly, things like that.
Mm. It's learning at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all about learning. It's about learning, and it just takes time.
Mhm.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It can take years.
Yeah.
But that is a whole other topic we could get into another time.
Oh yeah.
It's huge. It
Next
sounds
interview.
huge, right? Another one, a next interview. We'll go into
Yeah.
all of that, and hopefully we'll start there, and we'll look at the process and see where you're at. But it feels like
I'm
you're
so
about
excited
to,
about it, yeah.
yeah, you're about to walk into this new kind of portal of self-reflection, and that's good. You
Yeah.
stay there. That's wonderful. Well, absolutely
Mhm.
wonderful meeting with you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for
And the
having
very,
me.
very, my pleasure, and the very best of luck with your music, and just keep
Thank
me
you.
posted. Yeah, definitely.
100%. Yeah. I have your email now.
Definitely. Awesome. All right, take care now.
The news headlines and shadows.